Hey, This Week in Mormons, this is Kurt Frankum. I'm stepping in for a quick interview, a special interview with the one and only David Snell from Saints Unscripted. David, what's up, my friend?
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, how's things at Saints Unscripted?
Things are good.
Yeah.
Just moving right along. Lots of awesome guests and episodes lined up. It's fun. I enjoy it.
Any come to mind that you can tease us with, or
Any like guests?
yeah, guests or episodes that you're excited about? Or
Okay, well, I am very excited. Um, I don't think I'm not allowed to say this, but we do have hopefully scheduled soon an interview with Richard Bushman,
ooh,
which I think will be very fun.
is this the first time you've had him on?
It is.
Really? Wow.
Jeez,
Okay.
Kurt, you're like,
Well, hey,
you're just getting around to Richard Bushman?
For the record, I have never interviewed the man. So,
Okay.
And so what excites you about chatting with Richard Bushman? Like, do you have that one rough stone rolling question that's rolling around in your head?
Well, he's my kind of guy, in that his work on Joseph Smith's biography, Rough Stone Rolling, is top of the line, but it wasn't published by the church, which I think allows him to have a little bit more space to kind of, there's less red tape, I guess I'd say.
Yeah.
And so naturally, because of that, it's been a controversial biography. And so I'm just interested to kind of talk to him about that. And he's, since publishing that book, he's become a rather controversial character, both inside and outside the church. So I'm interested because a lot of quotes from him have been kind of taken out of context, and he's been kind of made to look as if he doesn't really have a testimony of the Book of Mormon or Joseph Smith or those kinds of things. So I'm looking forward to hopefully kind of getting to the bottom of it and kind of hearing it from the horse's mouth, and kind of hopefully putting those rumors, those concerns to bed.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's done that several times by now, but it'll be a fun conversation, I hope.
This is the nature of social media, David, right? It's like you
just got to do it over and over again,
and another one pops up. But yeah, it's interesting to see. I read Rough Stone Rolling, and it's pretty heavy academic for my taste. But I sort of felt like if there's a book that like every Latter-day Saint just needs to like push through and get through and like digest the stories and the history, like that would be it. And so I did that. But it's interesting to see, even, from both sides of the spectrum of belief, right? That there's a lot of criticism there. And some people, even more Orthodox members, sort of dismiss him, right? Or those more academic people dismiss him. And it's like, well, I think it's worth sitting with these stories and understanding why he framed them as he did and how they can inform our faith, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got him coming up. As far as faith and beliefs videos go, which for those who don't know, that's kind of my side project, my baby on Saints Unscripted. We've got lots of good stuff coming up. We're going to be talking about the Lamanite skin curse in the Book of Mormon. We're going to be talking about controversy surrounding priesthood restoration and claims that the witnesses never signed their actual names to the testimonies of the 3 and the 8 witnesses. That one's just a fun one, I think. Nice. Yeah, lots of drama. So
controversy. Love it.
It never runs out. So I guess job security for me, right?
Yeah. So when you make those videos, are you aiming for a certain time? Like you try and keep them under 5 minutes, or?
So it's kind of naturally turned into, I try to keep so the faith and beliefs videos, they are the scripted portion of Saints Unscripted,
right?
But I write those and I research them, and I'll consult experts when things just go above and beyond me, which is pretty often. But I try to keep them at about 2 typed pages.
Oh, okay.
Which turns out to be like 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes. Originally, when we started those videos, the goal was like 1 to 3 minutes. And we were just like, that's not going to happen. That's not possible for
Yeah.
some of these topics. But
Cool.
yeah,
Nice. And you're also been writing an article in the Public Square magazine. Now, is this the first time you've contributed to Public Square magazine?
it is.
Nice. How
Yeah.
did this come about? Was it your idea?
Well, I have okay, so you're talking about so the article is called a Clarion call for cyber disciples. And I stutter there a little bit because when you share it on social media, the title's different, kind of depending on who they're optimizing it for.
Yeah.
But so it came about because there are a lot of Latter-day Saint content creators out there. And I will say to anyone watching, if it looks like I'm looking off into space, I'm actually looking at Kurt. My camera is
I'm
just
over here.
My camera's right here, and Kurt's just up here behind the camera. So that's why if it looks weird, that's it. But so recently I've been getting involved with some groups that are trying to kind of bring together Latter-day Saint content creators, because as it is, people are kind of siloed from each other. You've got, and that's fine. Like, there are a lot of great Latter-day Saints out there that just want to make content, that
Right.
want to get into this kind of this sphere. And me and other people have been trying to bring them together so that there's a community, and so that we can support each other, and share each other's stuff and promote each other, and just kind of make it a more team effort where possible. Because at the same time, like, if you are one of those new creators, if you're just starting to make Latter-day Saint content, social media is a terrible, terrible place to learn most anything about the church, as you know.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to teach people about your faith, you're going to get bombarded. Like, it's pretty much inevitable. And so the idea was, maybe in addition to kind of these cyber social groups that we're pulling people into, maybe we need to kind of create a document that we can all put our names on it, kind of unifies us as far as our content creation ideology goes. And it was based off of actually another article from Public Square magazine about radical orthodoxy, I believe, if you remember that. And it was a kind of a similar thing, but it was targeted towards just Latter-day Saints everywhere, I think. And it was kind of, hey, this is what we stand for. This is what we believe. This is what we're going to do. And if you agree with it, put your name on this document and let's go do it. So it was kind of based on that, in the sense of, hey, there are a lot of content creators out there. A lot of them probably feel alone or overwhelmed by kind of the negative response, or the amount of negativity on social media about the church. So, hey, maybe it will be helpful if we can kind of lay out a list of goals or guidelines by which we kind of create our content, and it might be inspiring to them to kind of see other content creators on there, and to be able to add their own names on there, and feel like they're a bit more like they're a part of a team, if that makes sense. And it's interesting, because this isn't like when we were all baptized, we essentially already did this, right? Like, we all took upon ourselves the name of Christ. We're all already, signed up for the same team, essentially. So in a lot of ways, this is kind of an echo of the baptismal covenant we've already made, because a lot of the items that you find on that list, by the things by which we judge our content, love, unity, all these different things, like, we've already agreed to embody those attributes. This is just kind of a reiteration of that, and hopefully something that not only helps current content creators not feel so alone and feel like they have a support system, but hopefully it also shows potential content creators that there's a community out there and that there are people that are willing to support you and have your back, when people come after you, which is going to happen.
Yeah. Because there are these there's these various movements or communities out there that you can sort of just naturally end up in, and suddenly you don't realize what community you're in or whatnot. Because there, as a fellow content creator, sometimes there's this feeling of, you want to talk about the hard issues. You want to be very open-minded. You want to be empathetic towards others' beliefs and where they're coming from. But at the end of the day, there's certain foundational beliefs that are feeding into my content creation, right? And it's sometimes those foundational beliefs can be lost in just the discussion of it all, right? That suddenly your name or my name is grouped with another name, when in reality we may not have the same foundational beliefs as that other name, right?
Yeah, sure.
And it's hard to navigate that, where I see some content creators out there who I appreciate the conversation they have, the content they create. However, I'm never quite sure where they stand with some of these foundational things. And so I love that, and correct me if I'm framing this wrong, but you've sort of created this Clarion call to say, if you are a disciple of Christ who believes in the restored church, here is a place to put your name and say, yeah, this is where I'm at foundationally. Now let's talk about all sorts of things, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not, by putting your name on that doesn't mean, like you said, we have to agree on everything as members of the church. And I was very careful to mention towards the end of the article, like, this is not a list of attributes that we have mastered, right? This is us looking forward. This is what we're aiming for. Because if we, if we're going to claim that we've already mastered it, like, this is how we do it, we're all going to be hypocrites, because none of us are perfect at it. But we're trying. And that's what this document is about. It's, hey, this is where we want to be. This is what's guiding our actions. Or this is what we're trying to allow to guide our actions. And we're going to mess up, but we're going to try, and we're going to keep trying, and we're going to try to correct ourselves when we mess up.
And so the ideals that you have listed are love, truth, unity, boldness, faithfulness. What was the process of actually coming up with the ideals that you wanted to put on this document?
Yeah, I mean, each one is different, or each one is difficult and complicated for different reasons. For example, love, how do you interpret that? Like what does it mean to be loving? And I think that is one where there might be a lot of, maybe not a lot, but some Latter-day Saint content creators who disagree. Because on the one hand, you can say, if you love someone, you're kind of tolerant of them, and you're not going to just tell them, hey, you're wrong and you're going to go to hell if you don't believe this way, But then there are other people that say, no, the most loving thing you can do is to strongly correct them, and maybe even get in their face a little bit to leave an impression, So there might be some people who disagree with that. But that's the foundation of what makes a disciple of Jesus Christ, right? That's what the scriptures say. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, that ye have love one for another. It's not who's right or who's wrong. It's loving each other. You can be wrong about, I think, a whole lot, but still be a disciple of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So that one was, it needed to be on the list. It was, there are nuances, but that one was an easy one to put on there. The other one that comes to mind is boldness. That one, so it's hard to balance kind of love and boldness. Not that they're opposites, but I think that by taking maybe a less aggressive approach when you're teaching people about Latter-day Saint beliefs or defending Latter-day Saint beliefs, sometimes by being less aggressive, people interpret that as kind of being a pushover, or not really taking a stand. And so I wanted to make sure we included something in that list that basically said, no, that's not what it means. Like, you don't have to be a jerk. You don't have to be a jerk to defend the gospel. You can be loving and bold at the same time. It's a fine line to balance, but being loving and showing Christ-like love does not necessarily mean that you're going to be a pushover or that it's a weakness in any way.
Yeah. This is interesting. I think it's just coming off of President Nelson's Peacegiver talk.
Right.
I think it's such a powerful talk. I mean, landmark talk, so important this day and age. I mean, if that doesn't testify of a living prophet, I don't know what will. And just a strong message, but it's so interesting to see how people are interpreting that sometimes there is this like, oh yeah, I guess I shouldn't push so hard online, or maybe I shouldn't stand up, but just let other people be them. But that in the conversation, that boldness, that strength is still needed, not to push anybody over or to be a pushover, but to simply say that even when we disagree about these things, this is a foundational thing that it's true. Like, this is where I'm at, and that may be a bold statement. So for example, one thing I feel like, and you alluded to a little bit, sort of being this, being accepting or affirming of all beliefs, and like, you do your that's your truth, this is my truth. We hear some of these things, and at the end of the day, I have a foundational belief that Jesus is the answer to like everything, like not just like to those most people who believe in Christianity. Like, no, I truly believe if people turn towards Jesus Christ and follow him, like, he will heal whatever you suffer with. Now, that doesn't mean tomorrow or the next day, but he is the answer, the only answer. And so in these discussions, there are some tough things that people experience in life. There's some tough situations. There's certain legislation that is sort of complicated. But at the end of the day, when somebody is dealing with something in life, I always come back to Jesus is the answer. Now, that's a very bold position to take, because some people are like, I don't know, like, for everything. Yes, I really believe that everything, this is an absolute. And so there's some boldness in that. And now I don't need to get like in their face or angry or, treat them in a negative way, but that's just where I'm at. And I think it's important for content creators to clearly show where they're at foundationally, so that they're attracting people to their message in a way that isn't confusing, or that isn't confusing. So any thoughts come from that?
I'm just thinking about what Christ would do, or what our Heavenly Father, how he would treat us. And I'm just thinking, like, if he respected us enough or loved us enough to allow us to choose for ourselves, like, as far as the plan of salvation goes, in pre-mortality, he said, hey, here's the plan, you can accept it or not, but I'm not going to cram it down your throat, is my interpretation of kind of that event. And I think that sometimes we feel like we need to cram it down people's throats, the truth, and I don't put that in quotations because it's not true, but like, and I think part of it is we've been taught about these amazing missionaries from church history or from the scriptures that, they stand up, Samuel the Lamanite, stand up on the wall and tell everybody you're wrong, and this is what's going to happen. And, as a missionary, I remember going out into the mission field thinking, like, here we go, like, now's my time to stand up and tell people that they are wrong. And I think my mind has, maybe I'd say my heart has softened a little bit since then. Maybe that was appropriate for Samuel the Lamanite. Maybe that's exactly what the Lord wanted him to do. But I think now, at least for me, I think that it's it's even more effective at changing someone's heart to give them space to come to their own conclusions and to figure things out for themselves.
Yeah.
There's actually, it brought to mind a scripture. Okay, so this, it brings to mind some verses I was reading recently in Alma chapter 1. I feel like my dad a little bit, just like, let me grab my scriptures and read to you for a little bit.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay. So this is Alma chapter 1. And you don't need a ton of context, just because this is just talking about the state of the church at this particular time in the Book of Mormon. But verse 19, it says, "But it came to pass that whosoever did not belong to the church of God began to persecute those that did belong to the church of God and had taken upon them the name of Christ. Yea, they did persecute them and afflict them with all manner of words, and this because of their humility, because they were not proud in their own eyes, and because they did impart the word of God one with another without money and without price." So you've got kind of a less aggressive people and more aggressive people taking advantage of them, right? And making fun of them, persecuting them, because it seems like they know that they're not going to face much backlash for it. Now there was a strict law among the people of the church that there should not any man belonging to the church arise and persecute those that did not belong to the church, and that there should be no persecution among themselves. So there it is. Like, hey, these people by their own law aren't allowed to do anything to us. So let's take advantage of that. We can do whatever we want to them. They won't do anything back. Nevertheless, there were many among them who began to be proud. And this is speaking of church members, I'm assuming. They began to be proud and began to contend warmly with their adversaries, even unto blows. Yea, they would smite one another with their fists. How often do we do that online, right? Like, and I don't know what it is about internet anonymity, but essentially we go to blows with these people online. Now, this was in the 2nd year of the reign of Alma, and it was a cause of much affliction to the church. Yea, it was the cause of much trial with the church. It's kind of like it's friendly fire within the church, right? For the hearts of many were hardened, and their names were blotted out, and they were remembered no more among the people of God. And also many withdrew themselves from among them. Now, this was a great trial to those that did stand fast in the faith. So reading those passages, it was just validating to me that fighting fire with fire is not the way to go. Mm-hmm. Like, as believers, we need to hold ourselves to a different standard than that. And people are going to try to take advantage of it. They have been since Book of Mormon times, right? But we need to maintain that standard that God has given us. Otherwise, we kind of see the consequences here, that hearts become hardened, and it becomes a great trial for even people within the church. And I see a lot of that today. And I'm hoping that this article can be kind of a reminder that there's a better way. And look, here are all of these people that are striving for that.
Yeah, because at the end of the article, obviously you go through the ideals that we were just talking about, and then there's signatories at the bottom, right? And there's a long list of I'm looking at the wrong one. Yeah, but yeah, a huge list of names, including my own name, and these are content creators. Is there a certain, like, Brother Jones, he teaches Sunday school on Sunday? Can he sign this as well, or is this? I mean, how do people get on this list?
So we don't have a kind of a strict criteria, and a lot of the people on that list, I think we've got like 80 people on that list at this point, and it continues to increase as people continue to see it and share it. But it's hard to define what is a Latter-day Saint content creator. I think in my mind, it's, as if you are somebody sharing Latter-day Saint content, whether that's your own original content or things that you're resharing from somebody else, then I think you can put your name on that list. And there are a lot of names actually on there who you may not recognize, but you'd probably recognize their social media accounts if you knew kind of, because sometimes we just see the name of the account, but we don't know who's behind it.
Right.
And a lot of those names are on that list as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is really cool. I think this is a great effort. It was not difficult for me to sign my name to the list and to be in this effort. And it is, I think a big thing that doesn't get talked about, like, I think just, going back to the President Nelson's Peacegiver talk, I hear so many people come from that sort of this feeling of, yeah, you know what, you just need to be nicer, stop yelling at each other, stop judging people. Look, our prophet said it, but sometimes we underestimate the power of these platforms and how awful they are for healthy dialogue. Like, if I want to go engage with something about a really important issue, really the last place I should try to do that is Facebook. Now, or Twitter, or, insert social media platform here. But, this is why I'm so partial to podcasting, is I feel like I consider it social media, but it's like the last social media that doesn't have a strong comment section, right? And that you can get on here and you can talk. And of course, sometimes podcasts make it over to YouTube, and that has a very strong comment section. Yeah. But not that I want to like ban all comment sections, but if you're going to war in the comment section, like, it's the platform, not the person at the end that is causing the problem, And so I've often joked that it's if we're going into the drug house and we're shocked when we come out offended. Like, I can't believe those people said that. Well, you entered a drug house. What did you expect to find than those that are in a terrible situation that want to share, right? So, anyways, I love that this is a great step of where we can come together. We can recognize just the poison out there, these platforms that are not helpful in creating healthy dialogue, but maybe we can go back to these ideals and say, even though I'm stepping into these worlds, these platforms, I'm still going to conduct myself with love and truth and unity and boldness and faithfulness, and see what comes from it. So any final thoughts, David?
I think that the more that I've learned about the church and history and doctrine and scripture, the less need I feel to be overly defensive about it and to attack other people about it. I don't know quite why that is. I think that maybe I think when we don't have an answer, we feel threatened. But there are a lot of really good answers to a lot of really good questions. And when you're familiar with the content, when you're familiar with the research and the history, I think it empowers you to stay calm and to be like, hey, man, I understand your perspective. Here's kind of where I'm at and why I believe the way I do. Like, when you have a reason, when you have the ability to back up your truth claims or your assertions of belief, I think that enables a much more civil discussion, at least on one end of the conversation. Because sometimes the people making the claims, like, as a believer, sometimes you might be in the position where you're just kind of repeating what you've been told all your life.
Yeah. But
the same thing applies to a lot of critics. I think a lot of critics just find themselves repeating what they've been told most of their life. And it's when you kind of are familiar with the background of those issues and questions, that's when a civil dialogue can hopefully happen. And it may not be a scenario where you're proving somebody right or wrong, but rather a scenario where you can have a conversation and say, hey, I understand why you've come to that conclusion. I hope you can understand why I've come to a different conclusion. Because that is often what happens. Like, when it comes to history, sometimes things are not clear cut. There's a lot of ambiguity. And a lot of, where you land on any given issue, most of the time, sometimes it's pretty darn definitive. But with a lot of things, where you land will depend largely on how you choose to interpret the evidence and who you choose to believe. And I'm growing more comfortable with that, because I think I think that God has kind of designed it that way. Like that's why faith is involved, right? Like if there wasn't ambiguity, then there wouldn't be faith. There would just be knowledge. So I think God allows for ambiguity so that we can look at both sides and choose to believe anyway. Like this is what, and that shows God what our heart is yearning for. Like it shows God what we want to believe, what we want to become. And I think that's a better manifestation of our true character to God than just statements of knowledge would be, if that makes sense. Like I think that being academically forced to know something, like that's fine, and academics is great, but not having all the answers and choosing to believe something because it's good or wholesome or inspiring to you, like I think that tells God something about yourself that can't be told any other way. Anyway, I'm off on the rails here, but off the rails, but hopefully people can come to this article and maybe put their names on this document, and I'm hoping that it also creates somewhat of a community where maybe smaller creators can put their names on this document and feel like, hey, my name is on here with all these other people. My name is on here with Kurt Franco. Maybe I'll reach out to the guy, and ask him some questions or bounce some ideas off of him. And hopefully it also inspires bigger creators to kind of make room for the little guy and support the little guy. The older I get, the more excited I am for what the next generation is going to come up with. I think that sometimes I'm tempted to be kind of guarded about kind of my content or my style, how I create my content. But as time goes on, I'm like, no, man, if you want to do something similar to me or similar to these other guys, like go for it. Like we need more and more and more people that are interested in this stuff, that are making content about it, that are talking about it, even if it's just, repeating the same topics that have already been beaten to death. That's fine. Like get into it and see what happens, and kind of join the ranks, so to speak, in a spiritual sense, because there's work to do.
Yeah. All right, David. So if people want more David Snell, where are you pointing them to?
I am pointing you to Deseret Industries most days. Just go to the book section and you'll probably find me there. Not in the books, but in the aisles, perusing the books, because I'm too poor for Deseret book. So you'll find me at the DI, looking for gems. But no, I'm a host on Saints Unscripted, as people probably know. We've got a website, YouTube channel, Facebook page, couple Facebook pages. And I've got a public Facebook page, public figure page, which is weird for me to say.
You public figure,
but,
you.
It feels vain, but I don't.
The world we live in.
Well, I want people to be able to get in contact with me if they have questions and want to talk about some of these things. So I want to make myself available, but I don't generally accept friend requests on Facebook on my personal page from people I haven't met. So I made that public figure Facebook page so people can get in touch with me. I'm happy to talk with anybody. Like I love talking with people. That's one of my favorite things about what I get to do, is just people randomly sending me messages saying, hey, I've got this question. What do you think? And I don't have all the answers. I'm kind of an armchair scholar. I don't have big degrees behind me. But I am experienced enough that if I don't have an answer for you, I should at least be able to point you in the right direction where you can find more resources about different things. So you can find me on Facebook and
cool.
Yeah,
I prefer the Saints Unscripted YouTube channel, because sometimes you have some great visuals and things that go along with your videos, and
Yes.
and the content there. So go check them out, people. So and this article is on the Public Square Mag. What's it called? What's the URL? I closed the window.
.org, I think.
Here, I'm getting there. Oh, here it is. Yeah, publicsquaremag.org.
Yep.
And we'll link to it obviously in the show notes. It's called A Clarion Call for Cyber Disciples. And go check it out. Put your name on the list. Thanks, David.
Please. My pleasure, Kurt. Thanks for having me.